Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Radha Shama Sundara Hare Jaya Radhe Sham Radhe Sham Radhe Sham Jaya Radhe Sham Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Nitai Gaura Haribala Haribol, Haribol, Nitai Gaura Haribol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacārya Ashtota Satta Shishmachila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jaya Vishupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacārya Ashtota Satta Shishmachila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Kodi Vaishnavarinda ki Sirup Si Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Jiv Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunacarya Goswami Prabhu ki Prem Se Ko Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Syadeita Gadadhar Shivjari Gaura Bhaktavrinda ki Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopal Gopika Vinacham Kunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhana ki Jai Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Mathura Dham ki Jai Mayapura Dham ki Jai Jagannathpuri Dham ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Bhakti Devi ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Devi ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki Jai Sri Sri Gaunitai ki Jai Sri Sri Krishna Balaram ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Shyam Sundar ki Jai Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shigura and Shiguranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, first chapter, text number 4. Atra śūrā maheṣv-āsā bhīmārjuna-samā yudhi yuyudhāna virāṭaś drupadaś mahā-rathaḥ atra śūrā maheṣv-āsā bhīmārjuna-samā yudhi yuyudhāno virāṭaś drupadaś mahā-rathaḥ atra śūrā maheṣv-āsā bhīmārjuna-samā yudhi yuyudhāno virāṭaś drupadaś mahā-rathaḥ atra śūrā maheṣv-āsā bhīmārjuna-samā yudhi yuyudhāno virāṭaś drupadaś mahā-rathaḥ atra śūrā maheṣv-āsā bhīmārjuna-samā yudhi yuyudhāno virāṭaś drupadaś mahā-rathaḥ atra śūrā maheṣv-āsā bhīmārjuna-samā yudhi yuyudhāno virāṭaś drupadaś mahā-rathaḥ. Ladies, atra, here, śūrā, heroes, mahā-iṣu-āsā, mighty bowmen, Bhīma-arjuna, to Bhīma and Arjuna, samāḥ, equal, yudhi, in the fight, yuyudhāna, yuyudhāna, virāṭa, virāṭa, cha, also, drupada, drupad, cha, also, mahā-rathaḥ, great fighter. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Translation: here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhīma and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yuyudhāna, Virāṭa and Drupada. Purport: even though Dhṛṣṭadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Droṇācārya's very great power, in the military art there were many others who were causes of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as a great stumbling blocks on the path of victory, because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhīma and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhīma and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnana-salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yanam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Gadama Yam Darati Sabadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Ritam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadotam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Revam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishagandvidamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Vrishavano Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. So, again, beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra is inquiring from Sanjay about the situation in Kurukshetra, where his sons, headed by Duryodhana, and the sons of Pandu, the Pandavas, were present, ready to fight with each other. So Sanjaya is, by the mercy of Vyasadeva, able to see everything. And so he's relating to Dhritarashtra about the situation. So Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra, he was, materially speaking, quite intelligent, but spiritually speaking, he was blind, just like his father. So his father was, of course, his father was blind not only spiritually speaking, but materially speaking also. So here it is pointed out about the different powerful bowmen. So they were fighting with bow and arrow. But so they were not just ordinary fighters, but they were known as mahā-rathaḥ, great fighters, extremely powerful. So physically very strong, but also they were expert in military science and in using the different weapons, not only bow and arrow, but also sword and the club and so on. And they were using also, or using mantras to release the weapons. So there's a great science which nowadays is practically lost. So Sanjay is explaining about the situation, and so Duryodhana is practically also, to some point, Prabhupada has explained in a previous purport, is almost wanting to point out some defect in Droṇācārya, who was the commander-in-chief of his side. So of course, Prabhupada is hinting also that there was some political quarrel between Droṇācārya on Duryodhana's side and Drupada, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjuna's wife. And so Drupada, he had a son named Droṇācārya, the Dhṛṣṭadyumna, and so he was powerful, and he got actually the benediction that this Dhṛṣṭadyumna will be able to kill Droṇācārya. So Droṇācārya was on the side of Duryodhana, and Dhṛṣṭadyumna with his father were on the side of the Pandavas. So of course Droṇācārya, so he was not only the teacher of Duryodhana and his brothers, but he was also the teacher actually of the Pandavas. And even actually Droṇācārya, so he was very expert and almost undefeatable. But because he took the side, of course due to destiny also, he was obliged to take the side of Duryodhana. As well other great personality like Kripacārya, also one of the teachers, and Bhishma was also, of course he was actually also a devotee of the Lord. And he had so much love and affection for the Pandavas, more so than Duryodhana and the Kauravas, but he was also obliged to be on the side of Duryodhana. So of course it is very intriguing, this situation here on the battlefield, or how things happened to that point. And it is very interesting also. And everything is explained very nicely, all the details in the famous Mahabharata, so compiled by Vyasadeva. And actually the Bhagavad Gita is also included in the Mahabharata. So Bhīma and Arjuna, they were very exalted, of course also devotees of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, cousin brothers of Duryodhana, and so they actually grew up together. But right from the beginning there was always some rivalry between Duryodhana and his brothers and the 5 Pandavas. But of all of them, Arjuna was actually the most affectionate student of Droṇācārya. And so he was, because of his dedication, of course also because he was a devotee of Krishna, he excelled all of them, ultimately. But then, so Duryodhana is speaking to here Droṇācārya and pointing out that besides Bhīma and Arjuna, who are extraordinary fighters, are all great fighters. So they are mentioned here, Yuyudhāna, Virāṭa and Drupada. So on both sides there were many great personalities, kings of different parts of Bharatvarsha of India, and they all came together. Some on Duryodhana's side and some of the Pandava side. Actually, Duryodhana's army was bigger. But the Pandavas, they had Krishna on their side. Although Krishna had promised he will not fight. But Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And Krishna is helping his devotees, is protecting his devotees. So therefore, even Dhṛṣṭadyumna, so he was concerned, as mentioned already. It is evident from the first verse. Dharma kshetre, Kurukshetre. So in Kurukshetra, it is a Dharma kshetra. It is a religious place. And the Pandavas, they were following Dharma very nicely, whereas Duryodhana, many times they deviated from the path of Dharma. Cheating, like in the gambling match which was held before, which is practically then also the cause, a gambling match. So Duryodhana challenging Yudhishthira, and that by cheating they won. Duryodhana, who engaged his uncle Shakuni, who was expert in playing, in gambling with the dice. But he was also actually a cheater. He was manipulating the things. So, therefore, because they were not always so religious, and even by unfair means they were driving the Pandavas out of the kingdom. Duryodhana tried to kill the Pandavas. So not following Dharma properly, not knowing properly what is Dharma. Therefore he was a little comprehensive that what will be the outcome. So many times you can see, even for example as devotees, so we know what we're supposed to do and what we are not supposed to do. And sometimes you may do something wrong and then we even know, but then we may not acknowledge it. We want to just hide it or avoid thinking about that. But inside we know that actually that was a mistake there. So Dhṛṣṭadyumna and Duryodhana, so they had knowledge also in regards to the scriptures and what to do and what not to do. But they were deviating. And they thought that still everything should be all right. Of course, a foolish person who does not have knowledge and he does something wrong, then he doesn't think about it and he's not caring about that. but then usually there's a reaction. So therefore one should know what to do and what not to do. And one should follow the path of Dharma, following the religious principles, being under the guidance of the representative of the Lord, who is most knowledgeable, who has love and devotion for the Supreme Lord, who can then properly guide us. And if we follow his guidance, then we can advance in spiritual life. So here in Purport also it is mentioned, so the different fighter was there, and Dhṛṣṭadyumna was there, the son of Drupada, who was meant to be the cause of Droṇācārya's death, and everyone actually knew that. But he was of course also powerful warrior, but on Droṇācārya's side there were also powerful warriors there, and especially Droṇācārya as the teacher, very powerful. And usually we can see the teacher usually who can challenge the teacher? The students, they aren't equal. They are never equal to the teacher usually. So in the school or even in regards to warfare, so Droṇācārya was powerful, he was expert. And similarly, other teachers were there, Kripacārya, and then especially Bhishmadev. And they had more soldiers on their side. So therefore Dhṛṣṭadyumna didn't seem to be such a great threat to Duryodhana's side, because other powerful people were there, and they were also there to protect Droṇācārya from Dhṛṣṭadyumna. So they were expert in trying to execute or exercise their military power and proper rights. So a great power in the military art. There's an art also how to fight, and usually there were rules and regulations to be followed during fighting. If the enemy was there and for some reason if the weapon is falling from the hand of the enemy, then so the warrior is not supposed to attack the unarmed enemy, but he should wait till he can pick up his weapon again, and then he should fight. Or they were on the chariots, and if for some reason if the warrior has to go down from the chariot, then the opposite warrior, he should not fight against him when he's not on the chariot. So many rules and regulations were there. And also usually as everyone, that is explained later, everyone is blowing their conch shells. That is to announce the beginning of the fight every morning, usually after sunrise. They were not fighting at night time. And then evening time also, just before sunset, they're blowing the conch shell, signaling that now we have to stop fighting. And after that, once they blow the conch shell, then they cannot continue fighting. That would not be proper. So usually one is expected to follow. But then during this fight also, as it is evident from the Mahabharata, one can see that many times, especially from Duryodhana's side, they were not following all the rules and regulations in regards to fighting. Just like Arjun's son, Abhimanyu, one time he approached his mighty warriors on Duryodhana's side, and they had a formation, different formations are there, of how to arrange the army. and then seeing also the other army, then they were sometimes changing the formation. So they were, one time they had a chakra view, known as chakra view, Duryodhana side, and very difficult to enter that, and then to try to attack the main persons. Difficult to go in, and even more difficult to get out. So it is explained that Arjuna, he knew how to enter and knew how to get out. Abhimanyu was just 16 years old, who had learned from his father and from other seniors. So he had learned and he knew how to enter the chakra view, this formation, but he didn't know how to get out properly. So he entered, and then he was facing the great warriors, Droṇācārya, Kripacārya, Bhīsma, Duryodhana himself, Karna, and he was fighting very violently. But then they were all together attacking him from different sides, which was also not proper. And then he could not escape, and they killed him. So military art is there, and rules and regulations are there, which the fighters had to know and they had to follow. But sometimes then, in the middle of the fight, sometimes they were overstepping and they were transgressing the proper etiquette, maryada. And then, but if one is always abiding by dharma, with the Lord in the center, then ultimately one will be successful. And it is mentioned in the scriptures also that if a warrior is fighting and then if he's losing his life during the fight, so then there's no loss, of course, except his life is lost, but he may be elevated to the heavenly planets if it is a religious fight, if they're following the conducts of the Vedic culture, usually with, of course, some understanding of the absolute truth, or higher beings, or the demigods, having proper knowledge, then they may be elevated to the planets of the demigods. And if one is a devotee, he may be elevated to the kingdom of God. Or he may, if not successful, then he can get a better birth, a good birth in the next life. So if one is on the proper path, then there's never any loss or diminution in regards to his spiritual advancement, even in regards to his material situation. One who does good in this world, so first of all is not overcome by evil, and then also in the next life he will have a good position. One who has a proper consciousness, properly behaving this life, and so then even after giving up the body, so it may be at the proper time, or it may be early also, or prematurely, but then the consciousness is carried on, and these good activities that will result in having a good position in the next lifetime also. Whereas if one's consciousness is not proper, if one is not acting properly, then degradation is certain. Then his next life will not be so. Although in this life he may be in good position, but if he's not acting properly, not having the proper consciousness, then there will be degradation. So Duryodhana, he was not so much only worried about Dhṛṣṭadyumna, but then he saw also other great fighters, and which were a cause of some fear also in him. All the kshatriya, usually they're fearless, they're powerful, and they're not fearing death, but at the same time, if the situation is not favorable, it is natural that some fear may be there. But then nevertheless they will still fight. Even a warrior, if he sees that his position is not so good, still he will try to fight, rather than giving up the fight and returning home, defeated. A true warrior, he doesn't want to be defeated. Rather he would like to die on the battlefield than being defeated. So Duryodhana, so to also he, just like his father, had also some apprehension was there that so stumbling blocks are there on the path of victory, because they're great fighters. Although on his side there were great fighters also, but on the other side also. And of course Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas, but Duryodhana, he was just thinking, well, he didn't understand Krishna's supreme position, that is the Supreme Lord. He thought of him as a powerful personality, a strong, heroic person, and he had a big army also. But then at one point, as both Arjuna and Duryodhana approached Krishna, and desiring to have the help of Krishna, of course, Duryodhana, he was more interested in the army than Krishna. He was thinking Krishna's army is better than Krishna. That was again his also his foolishness, or sign of his not understanding the situation, the power of Krishna. Whereas Arjuna, so he knew the position of Krishna, although there's a friendly relationship, but he knew at the same time that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And so both approached Krishna as he was resting. They went in his chamber, trying to get his favor. And so Arjuna was there sitting at the feet of Krishna, and Duryodhana was sitting next to Krishna on the side, and he was thinking he will get up and he will see me, and then I can ask him first what I want. But Krishna, so he got up and he saw Arjuna there at his feet, because Arjuna was surrendered to Krishna, to his lotus feet. And he hardly noticed Duryodhana. And then he asked Arjuna, so what do you want? And he said, well, I would like to have your help here in this situation. And Krishna said, what do you want? My army or myself? I just want you to be on my side. And then Duryodhana was thinking, oh, this foolish Arjuna, great, he just wants Krishna. And so I can have the army. And Krishna said, yes, sure, I will be with you. And Duryodhana, what do you want? I want your army. Yes, sure, you can have my army. So he got Krishna's army, but he didn't have Krishna, because he didn't know the position of Krishna, that is the Supreme Lord. He just thought of him as some powerful person, warrior. So if we are surrendering to Krishna, then we'll always be protected by Krishna, we'll be helped by Krishna. Despite so many difficult situations which are there, always in this world. There's always some difficulty in this world. So Daivik, Adibhautik and Adhyatmic klesha there. Misery from our own body and mind, and natural calamities and other people or animals bothering. So practically not even one day is passing without some difficulty in practically almost everyone's life. Some difficulty will be there. But if we take shelter of Krishna, then we can overcome the difficulties. Even so, sometimes it seems to be very difficult, almost unsurmountable situation, and sometimes it may take days of of difficulty, of distress even. But if one is surrendering to Krishna, depending on Krishna, then one can, first of all, will get the strength to tolerate the situation. And then ultimately one will be successful also. Just like the Pandavas. So for many years they were in exile, and then this fighting was there. Of course the fighting was only 18 days, but it was a difficult situation. But then they came out victorious, because Krishna was on their side. And although he promised he will not fight, he will just be the chariot driver of Arjuna. But then still, by his mystic power, then he, of course, also helped the Pandavas. He, not physically, but by his good words also, by his encouragement, by his blessings, by his blessings he helped the Pandavas, and so they were victorious. So, and so basically, of course, Bhagavad Gita is there to give the knowledge, ultimately not to Arjuna but to us, how to make advancement in spiritual life, how to be successful in life by surrendering to Krishna, by keeping Krishna in the center of our life. And so this material world is, actually it is like a battlefield. And so it is not easy. But by Krishna's mercy we can overcome all the difficulties. By keeping Krishna in the center and by engaging in devotional service for Krishna's pleasure, as Krishna's want. Anyavilashita shunyam jnana karmanavaritam anukulena Krishna anushilanam bhaktiruttamam. So we have to do our seva, and we have to acquire knowledge. But we should do as Krishna wants, not what we want to do. So we do our duty, we do our seva, we get knowledge, but not in order to achieve something which we want. Should be no material ulterior motive, but everything it should be for Krishna's pleasure. Anukulina Krishna Anuchilanam, as Krishna wants, favorable for Krishna's pleasure. And then, so we can be successful in our life, in our devotional life, and then we can be also somewhat peaceful in this world, despite all difficulties, which are always there. And we can see in the life of the great devotees, so that the difficulties are there, but they are completely fixed in their consciousness on the lotus seat of the Lord, and in what to do and what not to do. They are very clear what they have to do, what is their duty, and how to have to execute their duty. They know. And the difficulties may be there, but then by Krishna's mercy they can overcome the difficulties. So Krishna is always there to help the devotees, to guide the devotees. From inside, from within the heart, is situated in everyone's heart or as a super soul. And from outside, in the form of the spiritual master or in the form of the Vaishnavas, Krishna is helping his devotees so they can advance, so they can overcome all difficulties in this life, and ultimately so they can attain perfection in realizing their identity as eternal servant of Krishna, and so they may realize their relationship with Krishna, eternal relationship. So, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, so the Bhagavad Gita has been presented as it is, with beautiful purpose by Srila Prabhupada, and so for our benefit, so we can properly understand what Krishna is explaining here. And so Prabhupada he has correctly translated the verses, and then he has given some explanation for our benefit, so we may understand the subject matter properly, so we may be able to engage in devotional service and make advancement and ultimately become perfect in our spiritual life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any questions or any comments? Everything very clear. Yes. Huh?
He was also one of the disciples of Droṇācārya,
Dhṛṣṭadyumna. Yes, yes. Most of the here great warriors which are there, so they were actually taught by Droṇācārya, Kripacārya and Bhishmadev. So they are the teachers, most prominent, of course not all of them, but especially the younger ones, like the Kauravas and the Pandavas, they were younger. Others who were elder, like, so, as mentioned here, Drupada, so he had some issue with Droṇācārya, and so the elders, they had their own teachers, but then the younger generations, most of them, many of them, they were students of Droṇācārya and Kripacārya, great warriors. So even though he was entrusted to Droṇācārya, and Droṇācārya also knew that Dhṛṣṭadyumna, so he got the benediction to be able to defeat Droṇācārya. But still, because he was approached by Dhṛṣṭadyumna, so he didn't hesitate to teach him whatever he knew. So because so these great personalities, so they also knew, of course, that ultimately everything is happening. If one is devoted to the Lord, then one will understand that everything is happening by the will of the Lord, and therefore one is not hesitant. And of course, knowing also that Mare Krishna Rakeke, Rake Krishna Mareke. If Krishna wants to protect me, nobody can harm me. And if Krishna wants to kill me, then nobody can protect me. So the devotees, they are aware of that principle, and they know also if somebody is approaching them in order to learn something. So if a qualified person is approaching the teacher, then it is the duty of the teacher to accept him. So, but qualification has to be there, of course, from the student. And then, so for warfare, but even for, in the Gurukul, for the Brahmanas, so the spiritual master, so he's accepting the qualified disciples, even though he may not be from a Brahmana family, but if the qualities of a Brahmanas are there, then he will accept also. Many instances are there. So Droṇācārya also, so he accepted Dhṛṣṭadyumna and he also instructed him. So many times actually they had more than one teacher. So of course, also Droṇācārya was one of the teachers, and then Kripacārya, and then Bhishmadev also. Because different branches are there of knowledge also. If, for example, we know that we have gone to school also, maybe beginning usually in the first or second class of the school, just learning the ABC and counting from 1 to 100 and so on. So then one teacher, he can handle the small children who are going 2-3 hours in school. But then later on, when they have many subject matters and so many hours in a day they have to study 5-6 hours, then more than one teacher is there. Then usually one subject matter is taken by one teacher who is expert, or maybe two, maybe expert in English or geography or whatever, or mathematics, and another is expert in some other subject matters. So, because then if one is in a higher levels of education, then there are more details there, and so the teacher then has to be qualified in his realm, and then he can properly explain. And so therefore there is a need of more than one teacher. So that was there also. Different teachers were there. So also, but then maybe one of course, one main teacher may be there. So similarly, even we can see that in our spiritual life, you may have Diksha Guru, and he's the main teacher also. He will give knowledge, but he may not always be available, or he may not be so expert in one field, and then he may send to somebody, and he may tell the disciples, or the disciple will understand. And if I want to learn something about this subject matter, then, like for example, the spiritual master may be there, he may not be expert in Sanskrit, but then he may tell his disciple to, you learn Sanskrit, you're an intelligent person, you go to such and such teacher. Or you learn about yagyas and samskars, and he may have some knowledge, but he may not be the spiritual master, he may not be practicing or may not be doing the yagyas, and he may send to somebody who is expert. So that is there also. So many times more than one teacher is there. So even in our life. So but usually is one initiating spiritual master, the Diksha Guru is only one, but then we may have several Shiksha Gurus also instructing spiritual master. Of course, who must be also very qualified. But then still usually in daily life, so it is best to just usually be under the guidance of one person. Not that one will have so many guides, and then sometimes because a different teachers or devotees, they may have different natures or different also understanding, and so therefore it is best to just have a main teacher there or guide who will help us for practical reasons or for practical application of implementing the knowledge received. So otherwise sometimes there may be difficulty if you ask different devotees, now what shall I do in my life? So then one person may give one advice and the other person may give another advice. So then who to follow? So it would be better to have one main teacher there also, guide. But knowledge we may receive from different persons. General knowledge, like every day we have a different speaker in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, and we get knowledge, we get some inspiration, some guideline, but in practical application in our life, so how to move forward, so it's best to follow one person who is experienced. So that would be better. Okay? Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki. So we have some mahaprasad for everyone.